Hey guys, and welcome to episode 2 of the podcast. Sorry once again about the quality of the microphone. You'll probably hear a lot of road noises in this episode as well. I have ordered a new microphone online and it should be coming sometime this week. So hopefully next week the audio quality is a bit better. You'll probably still hear a lot of road noises with that mic, but I'm hoping that at least my voice will be clearer. Anyway, a lot has happened over the past week in regards to developing the game. Today I'm hoping the podcast will be a lot more cohesive and with a lot more structure. I've made some notes. Last week I just decided to make the podcast 1 minute before I hit record, so it was very all over the place and rambly. But today I've actually got some notes that I can refer to. Firstly, I want to talk about Discord. In last week's episode, I told you to leave comments on the YouTube video if you had any feedback or ideas or suggestions or anything. I didn't think about my Discord server for some reason, but definitely the best place that you can go if you want to get involved with making this game and give me ideas and brainstorm with me is my Discord server. So in the description of the YouTube video or in the description of the podcast, there is a link to my Discord server. Go to that link and join the Discord. It's called Fies Fam. And there's a text channel in there called Board Game where we are brainstorming ideas, and I'm posting images of boards that I'm coming up with and spreadsheets for cards and things like that. So if you're interested in watching the development of this game more closely, definitely join the Discord and get involved. I've got some special mentions today. These people have been very active in the Discord over the past week, and so I want to give a big thank you to them. Those people are Tom, Natsu, Adam, and Kirst. So guys, thank you so much for all the input you've given over the past week. I'm going to do special mentions every week, so if you want to get a shout out, then definitely get involved in the Discord channel. Okay, first thing I really want to talk about is a game called Last One Standing. So in last week's podcast I said if you know of any battle royale games, please let me know and I will check them out. It then occurred to me that I'd done basically no market research on this game, so I looked up battle royale games and I only found one. This game was funded on Kickstarter. It's called Last One Standing, and it seems like it has a lot of similar concepts to the game I'm making, and especially the initial concept of it. So this game looks basically like a Fortnite board game. You could call this Fortnite and I would believe that it was made by the Fortnite people. So it seems like it's played on a randomized board with tiles made of 7 hexagons, which is exactly what I was one of my ideas that I mentioned last week. Tiles made of 1 hexagon in the middle with 6 hexagons around it, which is pretty amazing that they had the exact same idea for how to construct a randomized board. But a lot of the concepts seem very different. Obviously this is not in a maze, it's in a huge open battlefield similar to other battle royale games. And the tiles were made of different terrains, so I think there was a forest and a plains and lakes and stuff, rocks that you couldn't pass through. So the obstacles in the game were actually terrains. There were no walls along edges of the tiles like in my game. But yeah, that game looks pretty interesting. Similar mechanics, so that you have weapons with attack damage and range, so very similar stuff. But it was themed similarly to other battle royale games with guns and things like that. It also had the shrinking map mechanic where I think there were bombs that would come in and eliminate tiles off the board, which is a pretty cool idea. I never even thought about doing that. I haven't played a lot of battle royale games, so I kind of forgot about the shrinking map and the circle that comes in and forces you into the center. I kind of incentivize people to go to the center because that's where you have the bigger rewards. I'll think about adding the shrinking map idea for my game, but for the moment I'm not focusing on it. Okay, so that's Last One Standing. So let me see, what do I want to talk about first? Oh yeah, so last week I talked quite a bit about having hexagon spaces, a board made out of hexagon spaces and maybe tiles with 7 hexagons. I think I'm going to ditch that idea for now. I like the idea of it mathematically and in sense of the board game side of it. I like that sort of structure for the board, like in a mathematical sense, having 6 directions to go in and stuff. But every time I've tried to make a board for this game that's like hexagon based, it really just didn't feel like a labyrinth. Like when you imagine a labyrinth or a maze, you think about long walls and corridors and dead ends and stuff. Whereas if you make a honeycomb structure board, there are no long walls. Like if you make a long wall, it's a zigzag along the edges of the hexagon. So yeah, all of these boards that I come up with just really don't look like mazes, and they don't feel like mazes. So for now, just on that idea alone, I'm going to ditch the hexagon idea. So for now, I'm sticking with square maps with square spaces on them, and 4 players max. I might try and work out a way to make it 8 players and maybe have 2 people starting in each corner instead of only 1, but that they can't access each other very easily because of walls. Although we'll get into that as well, because you'll see soon that there are quite easy ways to get past the wall obstacles. Yeah, actually maybe that won't work at all. Okay, let me see. Oh yeah, about the rotating tiles and shifting wall idea, I still really love that theme and I really want that to work in the game, but I think it's more important for my game to be balanced and fair than it is for it to have a shifting wall mechanic just because it's nice thematically. So I really don't want to have to spend weeks or months trying to come up with a really good way to randomize the board when I can just make maybe a board or 3 boards or something. Like I can always include more than 1 board in the box, which are balanced. And I can just make it so that the gameplay is what makes each game feel different rather than a different map. Another way to do it is that you have a board which has a maze on it, but there might be some like 3x3 square sections of the map like scattered around it somehow, which you place a tile on top of, and so you can have some randomized areas, but the main structure of the map is the same. So I might look into doing that at some stage, but for now I'm just sticking to the same map each time and focusing on the gameplay rather than the board for now. Okay, so one idea that I had, which I have designed a board with now, is to have a shop in the middle. So how this will work is you will have to have some sort of currency to spend in the shop, so I'm just thinking gold. And my idea is that when you open chests, I think I want to keep the idea that you have to choose. You don't just draw a card, you have to choose from 3. And there can be gold in the chest, so maybe you'll really want an item, but if it doesn't suit your gameplay, maybe you can choose some gold instead. So there could be some cards like small bags of gold, medium-sized bags of gold, and large bags of gold, and the large bags of gold can just be rarer. So you can like choose that card and then play it, and it's just a one-time use, so after you play it you discard it, but when you play it you get some gold, which can just be little tokens that you get. And then I want to have shops in the middle of the board, and I've designed a board. I'll put it up now on the YouTube video if you're watching this on YouTube. So the shops can just be a space, one space that you can walk on in the middle of the board. Maybe there's only 1 shop and 1 space and everyone kind of fights to get to that space, or it can be several shops. So the board I designed has 4 shops, and there can be 4 different selections of items in the shop. So it could be like, 4 that kind of line up with one lines up with each edge of the board, so there can be like a north one, an east one, a south one, and a west one. And along that edge of the board you could put maybe 4 or 6 items, and that's what's available in that shop. So if you want one of those items, then you need to make your way over to that shop. Maybe it's not the one that's closest to you, and I think that will introduce a lot of strategy and thinking about other people's strategies and placement and where they are and where they want to get to. So if you see that there is an item which boosts your speed and you know that somebody might really want to get that, I mean that's useful for everyone, but there might be an item that somebody really wants to get. Even if you don't want to get it, you might want to try and intercept them because you know they're going for it. I'm really excited to try that out. I haven't tried out any of these things that I'm going to talk about in today's episode. We didn't do any playtesting on the weekend. I basically spent the whole weekend brainstorming and coming up with new ideas for the game, and I'm going to work really hard this week in the evenings to try and actually make all of these ideas into printable cards and things, so that hopefully next weekend we can test it. But okay, I'll start talking about the combat now, because the combat is the thing that has changed the most this week. So if you haven't listened to last week's episode, don't bother. It's really long and rambly, and I talked a lot about things which I've now changed. So I really hope that you can just listen to any episode of my podcast and you'll understand the game in its entirety where it's at now. But I don't want to talk about everything about the game each time. I don't know, I'll try and work out a healthy balance. Okay, so last week the game was basically, there were 6 item slots, and you got items from chests and you could put them on one of the 6 slots. So there was a weapon slot and 5 armor slots, and when you attack somebody, you dealt damage and you roll the die to see where on their body you hit them, and then you hoped to hit them where they didn't have any armor or where they had an item that was really good, so you could destroy it. And if you hit their armor, then they took less damage. That's basically the concept that I was going with before, which worked pretty well, but I wasn't happy with it. And so through the week we've been brainstorming and coming up with good new ideas, and basically reconstructed the entire combat system. And I really want to thank Tom, my sister's husband. He came up with a really good suggestion which just kickstarted this whole idea. He wanted to have more interaction with the combat instead of just attacking someone and then they cop it. He wanted to have more of back and forth, and he also suggested to have some sort of energy or stamina or some resource like that, which you had to kind of balance and spend by spend in combat and maybe movement or something like that. So as soon as he said energy or stamina, I immediately thought about mana, because mana is a very popular resource like energy, basically magical energy, in medieval type games. And so I've used it in Hearthstone and Heroes of the Storm, and I know it's in Magic the Gathering as well. So people coming to my game will hopefully have a good concept of mana already and will know what it means, and it's going to be a familiar concept to most people. So I also thought of Heroes of the Storm, which is a MOBA made by Blizzard, similar to League of Legends. I've played a hell of a lot of Heroes of the Storm, and basically in that game you play as a hero, and they have different abilities, and they have mana, which is magical energy, and you kind of have to use abilities at the right time and not waste your mana, because each ability uses mana, and if you run out of mana, then you can't use any more abilities, and people can kill you quite easily, and you can't be so impactful. I want a very similar concept in my game, and so the day, I can't remember which day it was, maybe Wednesday or Thursday, the day that Tom suggested that to me, I was just at work, and I just wanted to get home and write and just brainstorm stuff immediately. And I was thinking in my head and brainstorming, and yeah, it was actually a really fun day at work, because I wasn't focusing at all on my job. I was just brainstorming. Okay, so the new concept for the game is to have a class system where you play as a certain class, and each class will feel extremely different, and they will have different abilities. Each class will have different abilities, possibly different starting health amounts. Not sure, I'll have to through the week we've been brainstorming different classes and what they could possibly do in the game, different abilities they can have. I've kind of just chucked rough figures of numbers at the abilities and values and stuff, but all of those numbers will change, I'm sure, as I test and balance this game. So I think in this podcast I will talk more broadly about concepts and feel and how, what I want each class to be like, and barely mention the actual numbers of the abilities and stuff like that. But yeah, we're thinking to maybe have different health amounts. So a big tanky character can have a larger starting health than a character which deals more damage. But it might be that everyone starts with the same health amount, and you have other ways to feel tanky or to feel feel more fragile. Yeah, so the focus of the combat now will be more on abilities and balancing mana, and I think it will be much more strategic and feel much less random. And people can like have their favorite class that they like want to master, and if they play the game and they try out a class and they see somebody else using a class that they like the look of, they can try that. So I really like, last week I talked about having starting weapons, having like a melee starting weapon, a range starting weapon, and a magic starting weapon. This solves the same problem. It's like having a different kind of outlook on the game from the get-go, having a different starting strategy. Okay, I think I'll start talking about the classes now. So we've brainstormed 6 classes. Probably I will start with testing maybe 2 to 4 and really nailing them, and then any other classes we can kind of balance them around the already established balanced 2 to 4. Most of my testing will be with Tanya, so probably we'll choose 2 that we really want to focus on, and then kind of balance everything around that. But I'll just quickly introduce the 6 classes that we've come up with. So I tried to think about the most common classes, like most iconic classes from kind of card games and MOBAs and MMORPG games. So the ones that I came up with that I felt best suited my game are Warrior, Rogue, Mage, Warlock, Hunter, and Marksman. And actually I realize now 5 of the 6 are classes in Hearthstone. It's pretty funny, which is a card game that I've played a hell of a lot of. Okay, so I wanted to have 2 kind of like, according to my previous attack styles, I wanted to have 2 melee, 2 ranged, and 2 magic. So the 2 melee classes are obviously Warrior and Rogue. Warrior being a much tankier class where you take less damage, you have ways to reduce incoming damage, and kind of focus on crowd control. So interrupting what other people want to do, like slowing people down or stunning them or disabling their effects and stuff. I was actually quite hesitant to add this in because I fucking despise warriors in Hearthstone, and I didn't really like playing them in Heroes of the Storm either. It kind of like, for me, the idea of like warrior and control type classes is kind of like anti-fun. They kind of like just stop other people from doing what they want to do. So I want to try and make warriors in my game still have that same warrior tanky, like aggressive, big, brutish feel without interrupting what other people want to do so much. Like the reason I hate it so much in Hearthstone is because the whole class is just like focused around controlling the board, killing off your enemy's minions, gaining armor, and just like not dying. Instead of killing your opponent, you're just not dying, and the games often go for a really long time, and it can just feel completely useless to try and defeat a warrior because you can just feel like there's nothing you can do. Like sometimes it feels like control warriors don't have their own game plan, they're just stopping your game plan, which to me is not very fun. It's not fun to play, and it's not fun to play against. But that being said, if I'm going to have a medieval game with classes, I have to have a warrior. I have to have a tanky class. Alright, the next one is Rogue. So the idea of a rogue is that they're stealthy, they are sneaking around, they're difficult to hit, they kind of dash in, do some like combo of abilities, they use daggers, they like backstab people, or sometimes they like steal things from people. They're kind of like a bandit or something. So they like kind of dive in, do a heap of damage, and get out. That's kind of the idea of a rogue in my head anyway. While I'm designing these classes, I have characters in mind. So a warrior, I just have Garrosh in mind, both in Hearthstone and in Heroes of the Storm. For rogues, I'm thinking Valera, also in Hearthstone and Heroes of the Storm, and like Zeratul in Heroes of the Storm. So those are the first 2, the melee classes. Now we'll talk about the the magic classes. So the first one is just a mage. It's just a typical like high damage from like a medium distance class. So thinking like Li Ming or Jaina or Kel'Thuzad from Heroes of the Storm, and obviously the mage class in Hearthstone as well. And then the Warlock is the other magic class, and for the Warlock I want to focus on kind of like magic abilities, but instead of it doing a hell of a lot of damage, oh, and also the Mage, I want to have some sort of freezing effect, because I just love that feel of like Jaina being an ice mage, that you can freeze people in place. But for the Warlock, I want it to be, I want you to have like basically no mobility, so no like teleports or dashes or anything like that, and no crowd control, but just like medium level tankiness, pretty high damage, and also healing. I want to have like the Warlock feel like they can drain health from people from a distance. Like the one time I played WoW, I played for a month, and I played as a Warlock Goblin, I think, or something. It was definitely a Warlock. But just the feeling of like draining health from people, and like Gul'dan in Heroes of the Storm, and also kind of Gul'dan in Hearthstone, but he doesn't really drain health in Hearthstone. But yeah, using the drain health ability in Heroes of the Storm, that's the feel that I want to go for in my game. Kind of having medium range and draining the life of people, and also trading life for mana. I really want that feel as well for the Warlock. Okay, now I guess I'll briefly introduce the Hunter and the Marksman. The Hunter, I want to have, it's actually probably the most different class, so maybe I'll talk about the Marksman first. So the Hunter and the Marksman are like long range characters. The Marksman, I want to have quite low health and quite fast. They're all going to have a passive ability, and the Marksman's passive ability is just that it moves one extra space each turn. Oh, I haven't told you this yet either. So how it's going to work now is you roll one die. We haven't tested this yet. All of this could still change. But what I want to test first is you roll one die for movement, and you're able to move that many spaces, and you also roll one die for mana generation. So each turn you'll start the game with 0 mana and full health, and each turn you'll gain mana based on a die roll. So on average you'll gain 3.5 mana each turn. So that gives you a kind of idea of what the mana costs will be. It's not going to be like in the hundreds, it's going to be like 10 maximum. Oh my god, okay, I'm rambling again. I should have written some more notes about this. So each of the class will have a basic attack amount and a range. So instead of having weapons, there's going to be no more weapons or shields anymore. The classes will just have an attack damage and a range. So the melee classes will just have a range of 1 all the time, and they can never get more than that. They can never like equip a bow or something. Warrior will have, yeah, like kind of low-ish, maybe medium level attack damage and 1 range. The rogue will have higher attack damage and 1 range, but maybe lower health than the warrior will have. The mage will have low health, high damage, and medium range. The warlock will have medium everything, so medium damage, medium range, and medium health. This is just like my starting figures, which I can change as I go. The marksman will have, I think, long range and maybe medium damage. I was kind of thinking to have high damage, but like long range and high damage just seems too strong. So maybe medium damage with long range, but low health. And then the hunter will have long range as well, and maybe medium health and low damage. So yeah, maybe like on average they will have medium, 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 but if they have something higher, then something has to be lower for each class. Okay, so the marksman, yeah, I want to be really mobile and fast, so its passive ability is +1 speed. So when you roll the die to move, you just add 1 to it. That's just the passive ability for the marksman. The hunter's passive ability, you have 2 characters actually. So it's the hunter, and then I'm thinking to have either like a wolf or a dog, like a tracking dog or something, that you move as well. Initially I'm going to have it so that when you roll the die, you share the movement between yourself and the dog. I'm not sure how well that will go, if people will just want to move the wolf or just want to move the hunter themselves, or maybe I'll have to have a die roll for each of them. I'm not sure how it will work, but yeah, I'm really excited about the idea of like having a hunter and a dog. I'll just say wolf for now, but you know, I'll come up with some good idea. Okay, a hunter and a wolf, and they can like really use positioning and strategy to hunt people down, and like the wolf can go one way and the hunter goes another way, and they can corner people. So that's the passive ability of the hunter and the idea of the hunter. The wolf, by the way, is a melee unit, so it will have 1 range and So yeah, low range, maybe high damage, and medium health. I'm not sure. But the hunter will be long range, the hunter himself. So that's kind of the passive ability of the hunter. It doesn't really need any more passive ability. I'll go back up the list now. So the warlock, the passive ability is... Oh yeah, that you can trade... I haven't worked out the numbers yet, but I'm thinking maybe you can trade 2 life for 2 mana each turn. So you get more mana than most people, but you have to trade your life for it if you want to. You don't have to use that ability every turn, but it's available to use every turn. Okay, the mage's passive ability is to just have more mana. So each turn they add 1 mana to their mana roll, similar to the marksman, adding 1 to their movement roll. The rogue, it has like an evasive passive ability, where whenever you attack the rogue with a basic attack, so like your character's just normal attack based on their attack damage and their range, the rogue has a 33% chance to dodge the attack. So you just roll a die, and maybe if you roll a 5 or a 6, then you dodge the attack. So they're kind of evasive. And the warrior's passive ability is when they attack somebody, then they are slowed for the next turn. So maybe like when they roll to move on the next turn, they reduce the movement by maybe 1 or 2. So it's like a type of crowd control, so the warrior can either hit people and run away, and then it's harder for people to catch up to them, or control them, so like if the warrior is chasing people and they manage to hit them, then it's harder for the other person to escape. So I've given each class 3 abilities. I might as well go into all of them. I don't want the episodes to be too long, but I want to give you all of the stuff that we've brainstormed over the past week. If you are watching this on YouTube, then all of this stuff will be available on the screen. But if you're watching this, if you're just listening to this as the podcast, like I want you to know everything that we've come up with. Okay, I'll just quickly run through all of the abilities that we've brainstormed for the classes. I've told you all the passive abilities, so I might as well give you all the regular abilities as well. So the idea is all of these abilities come off cooldown at the start of your turn. They will all cost mana, so if you don't have enough mana, you can't cast the ability. But the start, like, I'm thinking to have maybe a little token or something that you place on the ability if you use it, and then at the start of your turn, you remove all of the tokens so that you know all the abilities have come off cooldown and they're ready to be used again at the start of your turn. So, let's start with the warrior. Okay, so the first ability is Armor Up, and it just says reduce the damage of an incoming basic attack by 50%. Okay, so some of these abilities will be offensive abilities and some of these will be defensive abilities, which is an idea I really like. And this plays into what Tom wanted, which was some sort of way to interact with people during combat. Like somebody attacking you, you can actually interact even if it's not on your turn. So the warrior's first ability is Armor Up. So if somebody attacks you, let's say they attack you for 6 damage, you can choose to spend the mana if you have it and reduce the damage of the incoming attack by 50%. So obviously if it's an even number, it's easy to work out. If it's 6, it just gets reduced to 3 and the warrior pays that amount. If they're getting attacked for 2 damage, they probably won't want to waste the mana and they'll just take the 2 damage instead of reducing it down to 1. I'll have to work out which way to round it if it's an odd number. So if they get attacked for 5 damage, for example, I'll have to work out if it rounds up or down, but that's just something I'll have to work out. The next one is Bash. So Bash is an ability that deals some small amount of damage, and it also reduces the damage of the player's abilities that you bash by 50% on their next turn. So this one is like a proactive damage reduction. Yeah, you bash somebody and then their abilities that do damage. So there's kind of 2 different types of damage now. There's like attack damage or physical damage, not sure what I want to name it. And then there's ability damage. So yeah, with bash, you deal some amount of damage to somebody and then they deal less damage with their abilities next turn. Quite a simple one. And then the third one for the warrior is Fury or Rage or something like that. So it's basically a way for the warrior to be able to deal more damage. So it's basically you just use this ability, you spend the mana, and then for the rest of your turn you deal double the amount of damage that you would normally deal. So that's with your basic attack and with bash. If there's some other way to gain abilities later, then or like items that deal damage or something, then this Fury ability will increase that damage as well. I also need to work out the maths of multiplying and adding damage. So if you multiply it first and then add boosts, it's going to be less damage. So for example, if you use Fury, so you're multiplying your damage by 2, do you multiply the base damage by 2, and then if you have like some item equipped which boosts your damage by 1, do you add the 1 at the end, or do you add 1 first and then multiply? I'll need to work that out, but basically Fury multiplies the damage by 2. I might as well go into this now. So I don't just want these abilities to be your only ways to spend mana. I also want to be able to upgrade all of your abilities. So I really like this mechanic in a game called Scythe, where you can spend some resources not doing anything but upgrading your ways to spend other resources. So yeah, I won't go into it in Scythe, but basically in my game, I want to have a way to spend mana upgrading your ways to spend mana. So initially, I'm going to test it so that you can spend 10 mana to upgrade any of your abilities, and it just like boosts what it already does. So yeah, all of the upgrades that I'm going to talk about, just think that they're going to cost 10 mana. I'm not going to tell you how much any of these abilities cost. It's kind of pointless to bring it up because we haven't tested anything and they could just be completely way off. I'm just going to come up with random numbers for the mana costs of these abilities, and we'll have to test them and balance them. But yeah, initially I'm going to test it so that the mana cost to upgrade these abilities is just 10, and maybe they will cost different amounts to upgrade, I don't know. But okay, I'll go through the upgrades for the warrior, and then I'll talk about the next class. So the passive abilities can be upgraded as well. So for the warrior, initially when you attack somebody, you reduce their movement on their next turn by 1. Maybe you give them a token with like a -1 symbol or something on it, and like a little foot, so that they remember on their next turn, okay, I have to take 1 off their movement. And then if you want to upgrade the passive ability of the warrior, then when you attack them, you reduce their movement by 2, so you might give them 2 -1 tokens. So for armor up, you remember it reduces the damage of an incoming basic attack by 50%. If you upgrade that ability, it reduces it by 100%. For bash, initially it might do 2 damage, but if you upgrade it, it will deal more, so maybe 4 damage or 3 damage, has to be balanced. But if you upgrade bash, it deals more damage, and also if you bash somebody, they can't do any damage with their abilities next turn, so it reduces their ability damage by 100% on their next turn. And then for Fury, instead of dealing 2 times the amount of damage that you'd normally deal, if you upgrade Fury, you do 3 times the damage. Okay, that's the warrior class done. My least favorite class, basically just reducing incoming damage. And yeah, it's the only class that I'm comfortable giving it like a double the damage or triple the damage or something, because it's going to be the class that deals the least amount of damage. So I want to give it some ability which can boost the damage you can do and kind of become like a berserker type character. Okay, so the next class is Rogue. Their passive ability, if you remember, was that you dodge basic attacks 33% of the time. So when you roll a die, you just have to roll a 5 or higher in order to dodge a basic attack when you get attacked. So if you upgrade the evasive basic ability, I want to name all the basic abilities, but I haven't yet. But it'll be called evasive or something like that. If you upgrade it, then you have a 66% chance to dodge basic attacks. Maybe that'll be too strong, I'm not sure. Maybe it has to be upgraded to 50%. But yeah, if it's 50%, then you just have to roll a 4 or higher. If it's going to be 66%, then you have to roll a 3 or higher to dodge a basic attack. Okay, their first like usable ability that costs mana is Dash, and it just says move 2 spaces in a line, can be activated when attacked. So this is like another one of those abilities which is reactive instead of offensive. It's a defensive ability. So my idea for this is the rogue gets attacked and it kind of dashes in a line to either dodge the attack or you can use it to just move more on your own turn. But remember the cooldown for these abilities. So if you use an ability on your turn, it's on cooldown until the start of your next turn. So some of these abilities where you have movement, if you want to use it on your turn to either chase somebody down or gain access to a chest that you otherwise wouldn't have access to, you can't use it until the start of your next turn. So if somebody attacks you, you can't use these like dash abilities to evade an attack. But that's like another use for it. So I'll have to test all of these. Maybe it's not going to work as well in my as it works in my head. But my idea for this ability is, let's say somebody like shoots an arrow at you, you can dash to avoid being hit. And I'm not sure how useful that's going to be actually now that I think about it, because of the rogue's basic like passive ability, dodging basic attacks anyway. So maybe I should put this into a different class. But for now it's in the rogue, and basically you dash 2 spaces in a line, can't go through walls, so it has to be like in a line, so in a straight line, 2 spaces away from where you are. This is to like dodge a basic attack or gain some extra movement on your own turn. If you upgrade this, then you increase the distance to 4 spaces instead of 2. Maybe it needs to be 3, I don't know, it has to be balanced. Another ability for the rogue is pickpocket. So this says steal 3 coins from another player within range. Maybe I should add some sort of damage to this as well to give the rogue more ability to do damage. So maybe like you mug somebody instead of just pickpocketing them. But I like the idea of stealing coins from other players as kind of the rogue's class identity. I thought about making it that you steal a card from somebody's hand, but I think that'll be too tilting. I think stealing coins works better and isn't as tilting for other players. But yeah, I like this idea. Not sure how much money it should be. It entirely depends on how much money. Initially it's going to be 3 coins, but maybe that's not enough. Maybe it's too much. I have no idea. And maybe I should add some damage to that as well. But if you upgrade it, you'll just steal more coins. If the player has it, of course. If they don't have it, then you just steal whatever they have. It's not like they're going to owe you money. So yeah, you can increase it to 5 coins from 3 or something like that, and probably increase the damage as well. Or maybe the upgrade can be that you deal damage as well as pickpocketing them. Not sure, but there'll be some sort of gold stealing mechanic for the rogue. Okay, the last ability for the rogue is Backstab. Backstab is a super iconic ability for rogues. It's a card in Hearthstone. It's a thing in, I think Valera has it in Heroes of the Storm as well, and I'm sure it's an ability in WoW. So I've tried to think about how I could add a backstab to my game. I don't really want people to have to keep track of which direction their character is facing. I'm pretty sure in WoW, like if you deal damage as a rogue, it does actually matter which direction you're facing, and you need to sneak up on people and attack them, like literally attack their backs. I could be wrong about that, but I think that's how it works in WoW. But anyway, I don't want people to have to track which direction they're facing so that the rogue has to attack people from behind. An alternative way that I came up with Adam was that the rogue kind of wants to strike first. So what Backstab does is it does a small amount of damage, maybe 2 or 3 damage, probably 2 damage, and you double the amount of damage that you do if you weren't damaged by that player on the previous turn. So the rogue has to kind of be stealthy and try not to take damage from people, because if they don't take damage, then they're able to deal more damage when they attack. So it's going to be really bad for a rogue. I want a rogue to like sneak around, dive in, attack, and then get out and not get damaged. If a rogue is standing there like trading blows with somebody, I want them to lose. So I want the rogue to have to get in, attack, and get out. So that's why this ability is going to deal a small amount of damage if you were damaged by that player on their previous turn, but more damage, like double the damage if you weren't. And then when you upgrade, let's say Backstab does 2 damage normally, maybe it does 3 if you upgrade it, so then double that to 6 if it's upgraded and you weren't damaged by that player last turn. Okay, that's the idea for Rogue. maybe this will be changed. It's not my favorite class that I've designed. Maybe the pickpocket idea is going to be too tilting. I want the game to be fun for everybody. I don't want to have a class that just ruins the fun. So we'll see how fun it is to steal money from other players. I'm also not sure exactly how influential money will be, especially in the initial playtesting. Like, maybe you'll get enough items from your chests and you won't need to go to the shop that often. But we'll see. We'll have to see in the playtest, hopefully this weekend. Okay, the next class is Mage. If you remember, their basic ability is they get +1 mana each turn on their roll, and if you upgrade it, you just get +2 mana each turn. Very simple. That's going to be quite expensive though, to like spend 10 mana to get an extra mana each turn. So you would have to play for at least 10 more turns just to start benefiting from that. So that's why I'm thinking maybe not all of these upgrades will cost the same amount. So maybe that one will only cost like 4 or something. I don't know, we'll have to see in the playtest. Which abilities people are choosing, which abilities are working, stuff like that. So the first ability for Mage is Blink. Blink is very iconic for me. I'm thinking Li Ming in Heroes of the Storm, teleporting a really short distance to evade some attack or to move faster. With Blink in my game, it's just move one space, like a teleport of one space, very short teleport, short distance, but you can teleport through walls with this ability. And I love that. I love that feel that the Mage kind of just kind of ignores walls. Not really, because when they're moving, they have to move spaces without walls between them. But you can use some mana. Obviously it has to be balanced, so I have no idea how much mana it should cost. But you can teleport a very short distance and go through a wall. And if you upgrade it, you can blink 2 spaces instead of 1. I think that's going to be a pretty expensive upgrade though, because teleporting 2 spaces enables you to go through 2 walls, which is going to be pretty broken, I think. Maybe with that upgrade you can teleport 2 spaces, but then you can't go through 2 walls, you can only go through 1. I don't know, we'll have to test it. But that's the Mage's first ability, Blink. The second ability for the Mage is Fireball. I don't know if I can keep this name, I might have to change it, but it's just super iconic. Like the Mage card in Hearthstone is Fireball. It's cost 4 mana, deals 6 damage. That is it. Just a big fucking ball of fire, high damage spell, pretty like medium mana cost. Jaina in Heroes of the Storm doesn't have Fireball because she's all focused on ice spells, but I want my Mage class in my game to just have one big fucking Fireball spell. So yeah, that's it. It's going to cost 4 or 5 mana and deal 6 damage. If you upgrade it, it's just going to deal more damage, maybe 9 or 10 damage. I don't know if I'll change the name. Maybe it's going to change to Pyroblast. Probably not. I don't really want to like get into any trouble with like copyright stuff. Probably I'll change the name of these abilities, but it's just going to be a bigger ball of fire. And the last ability for the Mage is Frost Blast or something. Let me check. Ice Blast. So Ice Blast is going to be less damage than Fireball, but probably cost more, because when you use Ice Blast on an opponent, on an enemy, you have a 33% chance to freeze them. So you just roll the die. If you roll a 5 or a 6, then you freeze them, which means they can't roll next turn. So you give them like a little icicle token or something, or you put it on their player sheet, and then they can't move next turn. So I'm thinking like Cone of Cold in Heroes of the Storm. I think there's an upgrade to Cone of Cold where if you use it on a chilled target, then you freeze them for a short time. That's what I'm thinking for this ability. And if you upgrade, what was it called? Ice Blast? Yeah. Then you just have a higher chance to freeze them and you deal a bit more damage. So maybe a 66% or a 50% chance to freeze them instead of 33%. I realize now that I haven't talked about the range of these abilities. All abilities for classes, the range is based on your class's range. So your basic attack damage is just an attack that you can do every turn, and it costs you no mana, and it has a certain range dictated by your class's range. All abilities have to obey this range if they're targeting enemies. So Fireball, Ice Blast, Bash, Backstab, all abilities that target enemies have the same range as your basic attack. It's just your class's range. So melee classes, the Warrior and the Rogue, have a range of 1. The magic classes, Mage and Warlock, have a range of 2. And the Hunter and the Marksman have a range of 4. Maybe that has to be reduced to 3. I don't know how strong it's going to be. but I want them to have longer range than the other two classes. Than the other classes. But the dog, the abilities for the wolf have a range of 1 because the wolf has a range of 1. So the wolf and the hunter himself have different ranges. Let's move on to the warlock. So the warlock's passive ability was sacrifice 2 health to gain 2 mana. This can be upgraded in 2 different ways. It can be upgraded so that you just sacrifice 2 health and gain 4 mana, or it can be that you don't need to sacrifice 2 health and you just gain 2 mana each turn. But that would make it identical to the mage's upgraded passive ability, which I don't want. I want each class to feel different. So I think I will make it that you still have to sacrifice 2 health, but you gain 4 mana instead of 2. Or maybe 3 mana, I don't know. But you get more mana than before you upgraded. Okay, the first ability for the warlock is Drain Health. It's like the iconic, it's Drain Health is the reason I wanted a warlock class in this game. So what Drain Health does is it deals some damage and it heals the warlock for 50% of the damage dealt. So it's basically like Gul'dan casting Drain Health in Heroes of the Storm. It's got 2 range because the warlock has 2 range, and let's say you deal 4 damage with the spell, then you heal yourself for 2 damage. So I want warlock to be this kind of using health as a resource, so trading health for mana and then using your spells to gain health back. At the moment, the only things that you can attack in the game are enemy players. If I add monsters to the game, for example, that drop better items, then you'll be able to cast these abilities on those monsters as well, and all the effects will apply. So maybe the warlock will cast Drain Health on monsters to regain health. That might be a bit shitty to play against. If you can like damage a warlock and then they just retreat and go and heal up off some minions or whatever, I add goblins or whatever, might be a bit annoying to play against. So it kind of disincentivizes me to add other things to attack, like NPCs. But anyway, that's the warlock's first ability, Drain Health. And when it's upgraded, it will either deal more damage and you still heal for 50%, or you'll heal for 100% of the damage dealt. But it'll have some way to upgrade. So the next ability is called Mana Blast, and I really like this one. Basically, you spend X mana and you can choose how much you want to spend, and you deal X damage. I love the idea of this, choosing how much damage you want to deal. You couldn't do this in like Heroes of the Storm because you have to put in a number when you're attacking someone. There's just not enough time to do that. But in a board game, I think it can work really well, and I'm really excited to test it. I think Warlock's my favorite class that I've designed, and I think I'll try it first. So how it will work is, let's say you want to deal 5 damage to somebody, you can spend 5 mana to do that. And it's going to be an inefficient use of your mana to deal the damage, because let's say if the mage's fireball does 6 damage, it's only going to cost 4 mana, but it adds a lot of flexibility. So let's say somebody has only 1 health left, you don't have to spend 4 mana to kill them. You can only spend 1 mana to kill them, which will be really efficient for that. And also, it will have, I think, the highest damage amount in any spell. I'm going to put some cap on this, so obviously you can't just save up. Oh, by the way, there's going to be some maximum amount of mana that you can store. It might be 20 or something like that. So if there's some class that can generate a lot of mana, you can't just save up like 100 mana or something like that. There's going to be some maximum. So at some stage you're going to have to start using spells so that when you get mana, you are not like you're actually getting mana when you roll a die, if you want to. But yeah, I'm guessing that the mana cap's going to be like 20. I'm not going to allow the Warlock class to just save up 20 mana and then just mana blast somebody for 20 damage. That's absolutely ridiculous. So there's going to be some cap to the amount of damage that the Warlock can do. Maybe it'll be 8 or 10 or something like that. And then if you upgrade Mana Blast, I think you will deal 2 times the amount of damage. This is just the initial idea. You'll deal 2 times the amount of damage that you spend on the mana, but there's still going to be a mana cap. Maybe the upgraded version will increase the mana cap a little bit, but it's not going to be like, okay, if the mana cap before was 8, now when you spend 8 mana you do 16 damage. I'm going to have it tested and balanced so that You'll be able to deal a lot of damage with the spell, but it'll be expensive. Maybe the upgraded Mana Blast just increases the cap, but you still have to pay the full amount. I'm not sure how I can upgrade that, but it'll be tested. Okay, the final ability for the Warlock is Spell Shield. Aside from Drain Health, the Warlock really had no survivability. It's got no mobility, it's got no abilities that move it, and nothing that interrupts what other people want to do. So I wanted to give it some sort of damage reduction. So it's got Spell Shield, very similar to the Warrior's Armor Up, only it works on spells, so ability damage. So it is a defensive ability, and it says take 50% less damage from an incoming ability. So exactly the same as the Warrior's Armor Up, only it works on abilities instead of basic attacks. So yeah, you just use it if somebody uses an ability on you, and you take 50% less damage, and if you upgrade it, then you take 100% less damage, so you can completely negate the effects of an incoming ability. I think that'll make the Warlock tanky enough to compete with other people, despite having much less mobility and not being able to teleport through walls or anything. But we'll see. Everything will become clear when we start testing all of these. Okay, moving on to the Hunter class. So the Hunter's basic ability, if you remember, was that you have a wolf, and you can move the wolf around as well as yourself. So there's a couple of ideas that I've had to upgrade this ability. It could be that initially you have to split your movement between yourself and the wolf, and then when you upgrade, you roll the die twice, once for yourself and then once for the wolf. This might be a bit too powerful though, because it's going to give you a lot more mobility than everyone else, but I really don't know how the dynamics are going to work with the wolf and the hunter, how effective they're going to be. So this one I'm going to have to kind of work out during testing. But another idea I've had to upgrade the hunter's passive ability is initially the wolf can only attack people. It can't open chests and get items, and it also can't buy items from shops. So a very simple upgrade to the hunter would be that the wolf can do those things. The wolf can open chests, and then the player just gets the items to their hand, same as they get the items if the actual hunter character opens a chest, and then somehow the fucking wolf can buy items from shops. Or the wolf will have to carry its own items, and if you want to use them, it has to bring them back to the hunter. I don't know. Probably the simplest way is just that the wolf can act as a second hunter character. But I'll come up with some creative way to upgrade the hunter's passive ability. Okay, the hunter's first regular ability that costs mana is Bear Trap. Oh yeah, I don't think I've talked about this yet. This is one of the abilities that I'm most excited about. I really want to try Warlock and Hunter, because this ability I'm so fucking excited about. So the Bear Trap ability, what it does is you pay some mana and you place a bear trap at your feet, so underneath, on the space that your character is standing on, the hunter, not the wolf. And if an enemy steps on the trap, they take some damage, and also they cannot move for the rest of the turn. So maybe they take 5 damage or something. It's going to be a high amount of damage because it's easily avoided. You can go around it, and also they can't move. So this is like another way that the hunter can kind of control the board and zone people out and trap people. So yeah, you place a bear trap. Maybe the hunter gets, like, the hunter will have some bear trap tokens, and you've got an initial limit of 3 bear traps that you can place. So you can place up to 3 at a time, and then if somebody activates, like steps on a bear trap, it gets removed from the board and it goes back to you, and you can place another one. So think Junkrat in Heroes of the Storm, if you know that character. He's got basically this ability. He's got 1, I think, that you can place, and then you can upgrade that later and have more. So that's what I'm thinking. You can upgrade, if you upgrade this ability, then you can place like up to 5 bear traps at a time. And maybe upgraded, it can deal more damage. But I think upgrading it to 5 is enough. Like, you're going to have so much control over the board. Fuck, I'm so excited to try that. It's going to be so sick. Okay, the next one is Pounce. So this is an ability for the wolf. Conceptually, I'm imagining that the wolf hunts people down and it pounces on them and deals damage. How to make this work in the actual board game might prove to be difficult. My initial idea is that the wolf can move 2 spaces in a straight line, exactly like how the rogue has their dash ability, but it can only do it if it enables the wolf to attack another player. So this will be cheaper than the rogue's dash ability, because this is conditional. You can't just use it any turn. You can't just pounce on nothing. It has to enable you to attack somebody. And also it can't be used defensively. So if you get attacked, you can't like pounce away like the rogue can dash away. It's going to pose problems, because there's going to be scenarios where people might think they can pounce, but it won't really make sense to pounce. Like, for example, okay, how the combat works is a melee character has a range of 1. So a wolf has a range of 1. So you have to be 1 space away from somebody in order to attack them. So let's say the wolf uses Pounce and it moves 2 spaces. Then it's 1 space away from another character, and so it can attack them, right? But what if that character is standing on a space which is like at a 90-degree angle to the direction that you pounced in? So let's say there's a character standing like around a corner from where your wolf is. So the wolf could like pounce and move 2 spaces, and then in order to attack, the character is like on the right or on the left from the direction that you attacked in. Then it's not really like you're pouncing on somebody. Also, like a pounce feels like you are jumping on them, so you should be on the same space as them. However, you can't be on the same space as another character in my game. Like, to attack them with melee, you have to be on the space next to them. So again, pounce doesn't really make sense in that aspect. So some things to iron out there, but that's the idea of the pounce ability. I really like it conceptually. There's this hunter class, I'm thinking about Rexxar in Heroes of the Storm. Not Rexxar in Hearthstone, which is actually the hunter class. Rexxar in Heroes of the Storm controls a bear called Misha, and it actually has an ability called Charge or something like that, where Misha like charges in a direction. It doesn't have to be towards another player, but yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking about it with this. Anyway, I'll have to playtest that and see how it works. And then the upgrade for Pounce is just that you can move more spaces than 2, maybe it's 3 or 4. And you can pounce on somebody from further range. And then the final ability for the hunter is Dog Food. This just heals your wolf, that's it. Which is also an ability for Rexxar in Heroes of the Storm, if I remember correctly. You can heal Misha. So yeah, it's just going to heal your wolf for a small amount. I don't want it to be a lot. I don't want the wolf to just be some bully like running around killing people that's indestructible. And then obviously the dog food upgrade will just be healing more. Okay, the final class is Marksman. So Marksman, I'm thinking just like an archer. I'm kind of thinking like Hanzo in Overwatch. That's kind of like the concept that I had in my head when I was thinking about this class. And also Vala in Heroes of the Storm. So like a long-ranged high damage dealer, but with low health. That like you really don't want to be caught and take damage as this class. You want to be like fast, agile, not taking damage, just dealing damage to other players from a safe distance. That's the idea for the Marksman. So yeah, they've got long range. So because they have long range, I think they should have medium damage and low health. So their passive ability is they move +1 space per turn. Upgrade, obviously you just move 2 spaces per turn instead of 1 on top of your die roll. So the first ability for the Marksman is Long Shot, and that just says increase your range by 2 for this turn. So initially your range is 4 or maybe 3, I don't know, it has to be balanced. And then you just increase the range for this turn. So if there's like somebody quite far away and you've got like a long line of sight to them, you can pay some mana and do a long shot and reach them, hopefully. And then the upgrade will just be like longer shot or something, and it just allows you to increase your range by more. Maybe instead of increasing it by 2, you can increase it by 3 or 4. Next ability is Piercing Shot. So this one allows you to fire an arrow that pierces walls, chests, people, traps, shops, everything. and damages anyone that it passes through. So it's basically an ability, so it's ability damage, not physical attack damage or whatever I'm going to call it. It's an ability that, think about Hanzo's, I don't know what it's called, maybe piercing shot in Heroes of the Storm. I don't know what it is in Overwatch, his abilities, but basically it's like an ability that fires in a line and pierces through everything that it hits. It's got a range of 4, because that's the hunter's range. And it just says fire an arrow that deals 4 damage to all enemies in a line 4 spaces long. Ignores walls. I'll come up with some good wording for it, but basically, yeah, it's an ability that fires in a straight line from where you are, some range, I think it's 4 ranges long, and deals some amount of damage to everyone in that line. It's going to feel really good if you can line up like more than one enemy, because this is a free-for-all game, you know, there's no teams. It's going to be pretty unlikely. Like, I haven't added any AoE effects into this game. Like, even the mage classes, there's no AoE effects because this is free-for-all. So if you can line up more than one person, that's going to feel really awesome to like eliminate 2 people in one shot or something. And this, yeah, ignores walls as well. So this is a really strong ability, and it's going to cost a shitload of mana. And then the upgrade, it's just going to deal more damage and probably have more range. I think the Marksman is going to be a class which is going to be pretty hard to balance, because everything about the class, it just feels powerful. So probably all these numbers will have to be toned down a bit, but yeah, everything will be tested. Okay, I'll just talk about the last ability for the Marksman, and then I'll get into the item brainstorm. This is going to be a really long podcast. Oh well, more content. Okay, the last ability for the Marksman is Vault. So think about Vala's, I think it's called Vault, her E ability in Heroes of the Storm. It's kind of a dash, but you kind of jump over stuff. Instead of like running or like rolling or whatever, you're vaulting over stuff. So this is like the Mage's Blink ability, except it's 2 spaces instead of just 1. So you can jump over walls, you can jump over traps, you can jump over people, you can jump over shops. You move 2 spaces in a line, has to be in a straight line, and yeah, you can jump over shit. So this kind of gives it that Hanzo feel of like being able to climb walls or whatever. But yeah, it's a vault, so you can basically ignore the hunter's traps and jump over them. But this ability is going to be really strong as well, so it's going to cost a lot of mana as well. So I feel like the Marksman is going to have 2 really expensive high mana cost abilities. I don't know how expensive Longshot's going to be, but I think that's okay, because you can balance all of these abilities. If you give somebody 2 strong ability, you can always increase the mana cost. It's a very easy way to balance these classes. Okay, that is all of the classes and abilities that we've brainstormed. Oh yeah, for Vault, when you upgrade it, you can just move more. So maybe you move 3 instead of 2 spaces. I'll quickly go through the items. Actually, maybe I won't. We haven't brainstormed the items too much, but we are coming up with a completely new item set. So that's why this week I'm going to have to work really hard to make all the items. Previously, all the items were worn items that you placed on one of the 6 slots on your body, one of which was weapon, and the other 5 were different armor slots. Okay, so now the items. I think some will still have item slots, but they're not going to be the same as what they were before. So that when you attack somebody, you're not going to roll a die to see where you hit them on their body. As I've said, you're just going to deal damage to them, or if there's some ability interaction, maybe they're defending themselves or dodging the attack or whatever. So that's how people are going to defend themselves in the game now. There's going to be no die rolling. This is really going to eliminate the whole randomness thing of like trying to, like, hoping you hit people on the right place on their body and feeling like you got unlucky because, yeah, you lost because you kept hitting their armor and they kept hitting you where you didn't have armor. I've started brainstorming items, and if you're watching this on YouTube, then you'll see my current brainstorm for the items. But basically, I want items to be worn, but and they're going to have like a small ongoing effect for the rest of the game. There's going to be no way for your opponents to destroy the items. I think at the moment there isn't, but maybe I'll add it to another class or maybe to some other items. But they're just kind of like small benefits that you get. So it might be some boots that make you move faster. It might be some gloves that make you hit harder with physical attacks. It might be like a wizard's hat that makes your abilities deal more damage. I want to add like some necklaces or pendants or amulets that give you effects like when you deal damage, you heal yourself a little bit, or you restore more mana each turn, or something like that. Like I want worn abilities to have small effects like that, just playing with the numbers that are in the game, like attack damage, speed, mana, health generation, stuff like that. Okay, and then I want to add a lot of one-time use items. So items in the chests will be there'll be some gold, like I said before. It's just an item that you use it and then you get gold into your hand. I think it will have to be that if you choose that card from a chest, then you have to use it immediately and get the gold, because otherwise, like if there's a rogue and they steal gold, people can just hold on to the gold item until they want to spend the gold so that the rogue can't pickpocket them. I'll have to work out that sort of interaction. But oh yeah, with the chests, now that I'm changing the items, I'm not going to have like tier 1, tier 2 and tier 3 items anymore. They're all just going to be items, and the more powerful items will appear less commonly, so there'll just be more versions of the weaker items. So like when you open a chest, there's always going to be a chance that you can get a more powerful item. So opening a chest every time is going to be exciting. So I think there's still going to be like tier 1, tier 2 and tier 3 chests, just that if you open a tier 1 chest, you draw 3 items, you get to choose to keep one of them. If you open a tier 2 chest, you draw 3 cards from the pile. There's just one pile now, and you get to choose 2 of them to keep, and you have to discard 1. And if you draw from the only tier 3 chest, like I'm showing the map now on the YouTube video, I'm sure, there's one tier 3 chest in the middle, kind of like behind all of the shops, directly in the center of the map. If you open that one, then you get to keep all 3 items that you draw. So most of the chests that you open, there's still going to be, you're going to be making a decision about which item you want. And I think it's going to be really nice, because you have to choose. Maybe you get offered some gold. Maybe it's like a bag of gold, a medium-sized bag of gold with like 5 gold in it or something. Or maybe you have to choose between that, maybe a one-time use item, like an item that restores some health, or an item that moves you or stuns an opponent or something like that, or an item which gives you an ongoing benefit for the rest of the game. For example, some swift boots that make you move 1 more space each turn, something like that. So I think there's still going to be a lot of decision making, and I think it's going to be a lot more strategic, and you have to choose whether you're going for a long-term game plan or like an item that you can use now, like use once and it's going to do a big impact that might eliminate another player. I think there's going to add a lot of long-term strategy to the game. So it's just some one-time use items that we've thought of. Food items, so it could be like a chocolate bar that restores a small amount of health, a hamburger that restores a medium amount of health, and a pineapple pizza that restores a large amount of health. Of course it has to be a pineapple pizza. Like I want the items in the game to be kind of comedic. I'm taking the balancing and the mechanics and everything of the game extremely seriously. I want the game to be very fun, strategic, well balanced. I want it to be a really good game. But then like the themes and the items and the characters and the ability names and stuff, I want to just have so much fun with that. I want to come up with silly items to put in the chests. I want to have silly names, could be memes and references for like the ability names and stuff. I want to add a lot of funny elements to the game as well. And if you want to be part of that, please join the Discord and brainstorm with us and come up with funny ideas. So yeah, there can be food. I was initially reluctant to add items that restore health to the game because I don't want the games to go for a long time, but not having that kind of feels a little strange. Like it's just such a simple thing to add. Like it adds a decision of like, okay, do I want something which is going to boost my game plan for the rest of the game? Or do I need something right now that's going to heal me because somebody's going to kill me? So yeah, all of these items will be available in both the chests and in the shops, but not the gold. You won't be able to like buy gold in the shops. That doesn't make any sense. So I think like at the start of the game, you'll have to separate the gold from the other items, shuffle all the items together, see what's going to appear in the shops. So maybe there's like 4 items per shop, and then shuffle all of the gold cards into the rest to make the deck, which you draw from when you open chests. Which might be a bit annoying to have to sift through all the gold cards, but I'm not sure how else to do it. And yeah, I haven't tested any of this yet. Okay, some other items. A trampoline, which you can bounce on, and basically it's the vault ability of the Marksman. So the trampoline, you can move 2 spaces and you can bounce over walls. So you could save this up if you know there's a path you want to get through, which the hunter has placed a trap down. You want to use a trampoline to jump over it. It could be like a smoke screen ability where you can like surround yourself in smoke so that other players cannot target you with basic attacks or abilities until the start of your next turn. So it kind of protects you for 1 turn. It could be an ability which freezes an opponent within range, within your character's range, although that would be stronger for characters with longer range. So maybe some of these abilities, if they target other players, they have to have a range written on them. So maybe like a bomb or something that you're throwing. I'm not sure if any of the abilities should deal damage, but I'm willing to try absolutely anything. So we're just brainstorming funny ideas. Tom came up with a really good idea, which is a metal detector, which is just a one-time use card. You play it, and then you get to go through the discard pile. So the pile of cards that have been rejected from chests and cards that people have already used. You get to go through the discard pile and choose an item, and you get to keep it. So you add it to your hand. So it's an item that you want to save until you see an item that somebody else has used, and then you play it and you get to take that. Pretty cool item. So all of these items will cost a certain amount of gold, which will have to be balanced as well. And the gold will only be relevant if you are buying it from a shop and you actually get to choose the item. If you are getting it from a chest, you don't have to pay any gold, you just choose it. What other items did we come up with? Like an energy drink, which allows you to roll the movement die twice on a turn. So you roll it. If you're not happy with your roll, you can use the energy drink and roll again. Tanya wanted to add a banana to the game. Tanya's my fiance. She wanted to add a banana to the game that you eat and then you drop a banana peel on the floor. And I thought that'd be hilarious if somebody steps on the banana, then they're sliding and they can't change direction again that turn. So like whatever direction they were going in when they stepped on the banana, they have to continue. If they want to keep moving, they have to continue in that direction until they've run out of movement spaces or until they hit a wall. Could be funny. Some of these ideas won't make it, but I just can't wait to try out some of these ridiculous things. But yeah, that's pretty much all that we brainstormed. We didn't spend too much time on brainstorming items. We're mostly focused on classes. So yeah, that's all that we've come up with for the past week. This is going to be another long podcast, like an hour long as well. But that's fine. I'm happy to put out hour-long podcasts if people want to listen to it. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much to everyone who participated in the Discord brainstorm, especially those 4 people I mentioned at the start of the podcast. If you're new to the podcast, please join the Discord server. As I said, the link is in the description on the YouTube video and also on the podcast description. Just click the link or copy paste it into your browser or into Discord and join in. And that's going to be it. I'm going to work super hard this week on making this game, so making all the cards, making the class sheets. So each class will have a sheet with like item slots on it and abilities. I think I'll have like padlock tokens to show that your upgraded ability has been locked until you pay however much mana to unlock it, and then you like remove the padlock token, or maybe move it over to the original version of the ability. Not sure, but I'm going to work really hard this week, get everything ready for playtesting this weekend. As always, if you have ideas for the game, themes, abilities, items, classes, like I'm opening this up now the class structure is out there. You guys can come up with your own classes. So a class has an basic attack damage, a range, starting health, and you can look at the existing classes to kind of get numbers. A class needs a passive ability, so an ongoing ability, like a small boost that doesn't cost any mana. 3 abilities which cost mana. Have a look at the existing mana cost to get a feel for how much things should cost. And the passive abilities and the mana costing abilities, whatever they're going to be called, have to have upgrades. They have to be upgradable. Come up with your own class ideas. I would love to hear them. If they are good, they will be in the game. Also, I'm really happy with this class idea because it's going to be a really easy way for me to add expansions to the game. So if I want to add like a goblins expansion or something, I can add like a heap of classes which are kind of goblin based. I think Kirst asked me last night if there's going to be races in the game. I don't think so. I think it'll add too much complexity to choose a class and a race. I think it's going to be complex enough with just classes. But yeah, come up with your own class ideas. Give me feedback on the class ideas that I already have. I don't think it's very useful feedback to just say this class sounds OP or this ability sounds OP. I realize that some abilities are powerful, like the Vault ability, being able to jump over 2 walls. Obviously that's powerful, but everything will be tested and balanced. Anything that's powerful I will make it cost more mana, and if it's still too powerful, just inherently, if the ability is too powerful, I will remove it and replace it with a different ability. Mostly what I want feedback on is the feel of the class identity, how the abilities feel, like obviously just in your head. If like an ability doesn't suit the class that it's in, let me know, because I obviously haven't played all games. Everyone has played a different selection of games and they have a different idea of what a class should feel like. So let me know how I did with designing the first 6 classes for the game. I'm not sure how many will be released with the full like finished product of whatever this game will be, whatever you buy in the box. I think 6 is a pretty decent number to come with, and then you can buy expansions to play with more classes, which will have their own tokens like bear traps and stuff like that. Yeah, that's the second podcast finished. It was a very long one as well. I hope you enjoyed. Please give me feedback, join the Discord server, leave comments on the YouTube video. I am absolutely obsessed with this game right now, and I'm so excited to be making it, talking about it, making the podcast and the videos. Thank you so much for listening. Hope you guys have a great week, and I will see you next Monday, hopefully with a better microphone, and hopefully you can hear everything better. All right, thanks guys. See you next week.